being in Black Mountain or Swannanoa, of course.
Wow.
That's part of the gay Asheville thing. It's attracted a lot of very prominent people, lesbians and gays, many of whom don't want it known that they have homes here. They often have homes elsewhere. Well, we had a home in California at the same time, and we're being bi-coastal. No, horrible shame. You know that Gladys Knight of the Pips lives here. Do you know even who Gladys Knight is?
I know.
Soul singer.
Yeah, Gladys Knight lives here.
And over the years, Andy McDowell, a name you probably don't know, but anyway, she lived in Biltmore Forest, and there are some semi-prominent. Well, David Geffen is probably the richest gay man in the world, and owns Jack Warner's old Beverly Hills estate in California. On the Symphony Hall in New York City, the New York Philharmonic's performance space is the David Geffen Theater. I mean, he can write $100 million checks and put his name on things like what used to be Philharmonic Hall at Lincoln Center in New York is now David Geffen Hall. His former lover lives in Black Mountain.
So somehow my parents ended up finding Asheville, so we moved here when I was 4 in 1996, and I've been here ever since. Actually, most of my family lives here, well, like immediate family. So we moved here when I was 4, and didn't officially move to Asheville proper. We moved to Swannanoa. And moving from a place like Miami, where I am surrounded by, Latinx people and people of color and this big city, to Swannanoa in the 90s, and this was like pre-Asheville getting very popular, so it was either, scattered hippies, rednecks, or abandoned, and moving to Swannanoa from that, whole like completely opposite way of the world was really intense. I had a really bad time in kindergarten and first grade. Mostly because it was like being Latinx was being trained out of me forcefully. Like, it was weird to talk Spanish. It was weird to be the other, essentially. And I've also talked to a couple of other friends who grew up here who are Latinx who said the same thing. Like, Spanish was my first language. I'm no longer as fluent as I want to be anymore because it was forced out of me in like rural white populated schools that were like, it's, they didn't want you to speak Spanish. If you spoke Spanish, they would say that again in English, that kind of thing.
And so one of the great contrasts is when we came here, and my son was in Black Mountain Primary School, and Jerry Green, the principal, did not bat an eye. We were fine. They treated Susan as the other parent. I mean, there was no threat or question.
So she had a job, so we moved up here and lived in her father's unfinished basement for about the first year. And I worked at Seven Sisters Gallery in Black Mountain and did not pro bono, but like internship volunteer work for Pisgah Legal Services while we studied for the North Carolina bar. We took the bar in February, passed, and in April we hung out a shingle on a loan that I had taken out, and shortly thereafter moved to Ridgecrest, to the most god-awful, ramshackle former summer vacation rental place you can imagine. It had a kerosene stove in the living room that was about this size down. I mean, it was huge. And you could see all around the doors and the windows. So we didn't worry about, carbon monoxide because we knew there was plenty of airflow, especially in the winter. And there would be times when Judy and I and her son and our 3 cats and dog would all be sleeping in the living room around the kerosene heater because it was so cold. During that time, we became members of Closer. And at different points, we were on the board or one thing or another. It was a little interesting because we were an education for the court system, let me put it that way. We were not the first gay and lesbian attorneys in town. But most of the other ones that we met had said, stay in the closet, don't come out, people don't know I'm gay. You know, I was like, okay. But I'd never been in a closet, so I didn't know how to go into a closet. And so I was pretty upfront. When I worked at child support, I would talk about my wife Judy and Nicholas, like other people talked about their husbands and stepchildren. And someone finally came in and sat down and said, you know, you talk about them like you're married. Do you consider yourself to be married? And I said, yeah. I mean, we can't legally get married, but sure. In '93, we had a ceremony. The Episcopal Church, All Souls, where we were going, would not let us have it there. We went to the bishop, and the bishop said, I wish I could allow it, but I can't. But let me pray with you, which was nice.
I don't ever go anywhere within the immediate Asheville area and ever feel like I have to curb myself, like I have to, try to do anything different. I remember as a teenager, I would very specifically have a certain voice that I would try to use, and I'd try to drop my pitch down and be less emotive, because I've listened to recordings of myself before, and when I'm just being authentically me, it's like, oh yeah, that dude's totally gay. But it's awesome to me to get to see and feel like there is sort of a spread and a growth that is coming from that. I live in Leicester now. Now, growing up my whole life, Leicester would have very much been considered to be a community similar to that, like Marshall, Mars Hill, Hendersonville, Black Mountain, any of those still very kind of quiet, small town conservative places. But I look around, and even within my own immediate neighborhood, within the past year and a half that I've lived there, I have found that there are other members of the queer community, which has been incredibly empowering.
So anything else you want to say about being a witch?
Oh, well, just one. Oh, yeah, you are the wind, remove the hurdles from our path. Oh, yeah, mother of nine, protect us with your medicine. Tornadoes, psychic energy, wind of our breath, help us with our words. Oh, yeah.
By that time, we had a bishop, an Episcopal bishop, who was much more friendly to gays. And about, maybe 4 or 5 years into Out in the Mountains, the Reverend Gene Robinson. Can you remember him? You know who he is?
I remember hearing his name, yeah.
Yeah. He was bishop up in, I want to say New Hampshire, but don't hold me to that. And he was gay, and he came out, and man, oh man, did it hit the fan. I mean, whoa. Anyway, our bishop, who was Bishop Bob Johnson, Gene wrote a book, and Bob got it and read it, was impressed, and so he called Michael, who was the priest here at that time, and he said to Michael, he said, I want you and Alice to get a group of people from out here in the diocese, and let's introduce Bishop Jean's book, and we held a meeting over at St. James in Black Mountain, which is a good hike from here, but it brought in a lot of people. And just to simply talk about Bishop Jean's book and what he had to say. And basically what he had to say was God loves everybody, and quit worrying about people's sexuality and what they do in their bedroom. I mean, you know what?
And I've been very lucky. I grew up in a Baptist church, but it was really pretty mellow, not one of the screaming and pounding and shouting Baptist churches, which I was thankful for. But I'm just not a church person, but I have a very strong faith, and my faith gets me through a lot of times. And I used to pray to take this away from me, and then it's almost like there was just a little quiet voice that says, I gave you this for a reason. It's my reason, not yours. So, you know, just go along with me for a while. I filled in at a radio station in Black Mountain and had to do the preachers on Sunday. And I talked to a couple of them, because a couple of them specifically were targeting LGBT people. And I said, why are you doing that? I said, why do you promote so much hate? Oh, this is not hate. And I said, yes, it is. He said, and you know it. Trans people have always been a part of Native American culture, and it's a positive part. Hawaii, the Hawaiian culture has always had trans people. Every culture except the Western has accepted and honored the trans people. There used to be a group called Kindred Spirits that Holly was instrumental in starting, that had retreats, and they involved a lot of Native American based spirituality.
So how do you take that to the transgender movement, and what is happening today in the transgender movement? We're seeing different people push another domino down, and all of a sudden there's a whole new vocabulary thing. And this is no more true than as we have gone back through Kindred Spirits and we have initiated that form of relationship within tribal Native American existence today. This is the offshoot of that domino falling and the concept of two-spirit that we are recording and we're seeing today. Marissa Sherrill's lover was a Native American two-spirit person.